It all started with a flashy red Corvette in a quiet neighborhood where everything was supposed to be perfect. But perfection came with a price, and Kerren, our HOA president, was the one demanding it. A simple car became her obsession, and soon I found myself facing a nightmare of petty fines, broken mirrors, and a battle for my right to exist freely. Little did she know, I wasn't just going to take it lying down. What started as a small act of defiance turned into a fight for justice that would expose more than just her cruelty. It would reveal the heart of the neighborhood itself. The first thing I saw that morning was red rubber shredded across the asphalt, like someone had fed my tires to a blender. The second thing I noticed was the knife. It sat there on the pavement like a calling card. Silver handle, clean. Not a drop of guilt on it. I crouched beside the car, my Corvette, my pride. All four tires gone, slashed beyond repair. The sun had barely risen, and already my blood felt like it was boiling in my veins. I stood, heart thudding, eyes scanning. And that was when I saw it. A note tucked under the windshield wiper. Folded once, neat, precise. Written in red marker like a child's classroom assignment. One word, unnecessary. I didn't need to wonder who it was. I already knew Margaret Hensley. Or, as the neighborhood lovingly called her, Kerren, president of the HOA, queen of the coven enforcer of bland beige conformity. She had made her opinion very clear when I moved in, 6 months ago. "This isn't that kind of neighborhood," she said that day, as I stepped out of the driver's seat. Her eyes had narrowed on the car, like it had insulted her directly. Bright red, sleek. Loud when it roared to life. Beautiful. She looked at it like it was an invasive species that needed to be eradicated. Too flashy. She sniffed. Draws the wrong kind of attention. I remember trying to laugh it off. Told her I'd worked 16-hour days for 3 years straight. Told her I hadn't taken a vacation in over 5. That the car was my reward. My reminder that it was all worth it. She didn't care. She'd only said, "We have standards here." The memory burned fresh as I stared at the shredded tires. The knife. The note. This wasn't just vandalism. This was personal. I took out my phone and started recording every inch, every detail I wanted. This documented, I called the police. Then I called the HOA. The police said they'd file a report. No cameras meant no suspects, no witnesses, no justice, just paperwork. The HOA said they'd look into it. Margaret herself returned my call. "Such a shame," she said, her voice syrupy and fake. Perhaps if the vehicle hadn't drawn so much attention, I didn't respond. Couldn't. My jaw was locked, hands trembling. The fury sat low in my chest. Heavy boiling. The next day, I had 4 new tires and a brand new camera system, high-def wide-angle, motion-sensitive. No more blind spots. I mounted one on the porch, 2 over the garage, 1 by the side yard. If it happened again, there'd be proof, but that wasn't enough. I wanted her to know I knew I walked across the street that evening, stood on her immaculate lawn with its perfectly trimmed hedges, and chemically green grass. She answered the door, in her signature beige blouse and matching judgment. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Well, hello, Jason. You slashed my tires," I said. No emotion, no accusation, just truth. Her smile widened. "Why would I do something like that?" I didn't blink. "You tell me," she shrugged. "Maybe you parked in the wrong place." I turned, walked away. But I knew she was watching. She always watched, I talked to a few neighbors over the next few days. Most were tight-lipped. One said, "She's done stuff like this before, but no one wants to deal with her." Another warned, "She's got the board wrapped around her finger." And then there was old Mr. Harper at the end of the cul-de-sac. He'd lived there 20 years. He just chuckled. "She's the law around here, son. You either fall in line or she chews you up." I could have moved, could have sold the house and taken the loss. But I'm not built that way. She wanted to intimidate me. Erase me, teach me a lesson. Instead, she taught me something else entirely, that some people only understand one language. Consequences. A week later, the HOA held a meeting in the community clubhouse. Faux wood tables, fluorescent lights, rows of fold-out chairs. Margaret sat at the head like a queen on a plastic throne. She welcomed everyone, then cleared her throat. "There have been complaints about non-conforming vehicles impacting the character of our neighborhood." Her eyes flicked to me, cold, triumphant. She held up a photo of my car taken from across the street. "This type of presentation may be appropriate in a dealership, not in our driveways." I stood, calm, measured. This is about personal property. This is about targeting people who don't meet your aesthetic. She cut me off. "You're out of order." The room shifted uncomfortably. Some avoided my eyes. Others glanced toward the exit. No one spoke. The motion passed. New policy. No sports cars parked in driveways overnight. Effective. Immediately, she smiled at me as if she'd won something permanent, as if power made her untouchable. I walked home under street lamps that hummed like insects. The Corvette sat gleaming under the moon, a monument to defiance. But I knew I couldn't win this game by standing in the open. So I started thinking, planning, calculating. Kerren thought she'd ended it. But all she'd done was light a fuse, and I had just decided it was going to burn straight to her doorstep. The morning after the new HOA rule took effect, I found a bright orange notice taped to my front door. It flapped slightly in the wind like a warning flag, citation in bold across the top. Apparently, my garbage bins had remained visible for longer than allowed. By 1 hour, the fine was $75. That same afternoon, I received another. This one for an oil stain on my driveway, the size of a $50. I stared at it, then at the citation, then across the street where Kerren stood watering. Her hedges, like nothing in the world, could touch her. She didn't wave. She smiled, and it was the smile of someone who believed the universe bent to her preferences, who thought power was a birthright. Within a week, I had 3 more. My porch light was too bright. My mailbox was half an inch off regulation height. My lawn had inconsistent grass density. It became clear this wasn't about the car anymore. It was about control. It was about obedience. I tried reasoning with the HOA, asked for a review, a fair process. The secretary looked down at the folder and whispered, "She said we have to enforce everything strictly now." She didn't say who. She didn't need to. I parked my Corvette in the garage to avoid more citations. It barely fit. The space had been storage until then. Now I moved boxes every evening just to slide the car in. It wasn't a solution. It was a temporary retreat. One night, as I stepped out to grab a delivery, I saw her again. Kerren walking her small, white poodle down the middle of the street. She paused in front of my driveway, looked at the oil stain again, shook her head slowly, then continued on. She didn't see me watching. The next morning, my side mirror was shattered. The glass lay in glittering pieces across the sidewalk, like frost. I checked the cameras. She had avoided every angle, deliberately, with experience. The blind spots were few, but she had found them. I filed another police report. The officer looked tired, said the same words. No witnesses. No footage. Nothing we can do. I felt like I was going mad. My life reduced to paper citations and broken plastic. Every attempt at fairness met with silence. Every neighbor quiet, nervous. One of them told me, "She's got friends in the county office. You push too hard, and your permits disappear." I sat at my kitchen table that night, the lights off. The only illumination coming from the street lamp through the window, I stared at the growing folder of letters and warnings. And I thought about the note on my windshield. Unnecessary. That word kept ringing in my ears like an accusation, like a brand. That was how she saw me. A blemish, a disturbance in her illusion of perfect harmony. But she made one mistake. She underestimated my patience. I started reading the HOA bylaws, the community charter, the voting rules, the meeting minutes. I highlighted everything, printed backups, made notes in the margins. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was methodical. I began attending every HOA meeting, quiet, prepared. She didn't know what to make of it. She would give me tight smiles, offer fake concern, try to control the agenda. I let her until I was ready. I spoke to the neighbors again. Not all of them. Just a few. The ones I'd seen hesitate. During the meetings, the ones who flinched when she raised her voice. They had stories too. A garden dug up over the wrong flower bed. A fence repainted without warning. A teenager's skateboard confiscated for being too loud. They were tired, but afraid. I asked simple questions. Do you know how long she's been president? Do you know when the last board election was? Do you know what the process is to request a vote? Most didn't. Most had stopped caring. But apathy is a weakness, and I knew how to turn it into a weapon. I documented everything, each citation, each interaction, every email I took, screenshots, recorded phone calls, photographed her trespassing, even had audio of her mocking the carb ban during a private conversation with another board member. This isn't about safety. It's about making sure we attract the right kind of people. That sentence alone was poison. It reeked of elitism, and it was exactly the kind of rot I needed to expose. But I needed more, so I baited her, parked the Corvette in the driveway again. Just for one night, nothing happened. I left it there again. Still nothing. On the third night, the mirror was smashed again. This time she missed a camera. The footage was grainy, but you could see the outline of a woman. Short hair, oversized sunglasses, holding a small, blunt object. She raised it, swung, then vanished into the shadows. I enhanced the footage. Sent it to the police. They said it helped. But still, not enough for a charge. It was enough for me. Brought the footage to the next HOA meeting. Played it on my laptop during the open discussion. People gasped. Some leaned forward. Kerren stood. Accused me of harassment. Said it was fabricated. I said nothing. Just looked at her. Then looked at them. And I saw something shift. A flicker of doubt. A moment of courage. She banged the gavel. Ended the meeting early. Stormed out before questions could be asked. I followed her with my eyes as she walked away. And for the first time, she didn't smile. That night. I sat on my porch, the Corvette in the driveway, its surface gleaming under the moonlight. I sipped my drink, watched the shadows move, and I smiled. Because she thought the storm was over, but I had just finished setting the stage for the real show. The next morning, I submitted a formal petition to the HOA board motion to remove the current president effective. Immediately attached were 23 signatures, enough to trigger a special election under the bylaws. I hand-delivered it to the HOA office. Made sure to get a time-stamped copy. Then I waited. Kerren didn't respond. Not directly, but the next day my mailbox was knocked clean off its post. The same evening, someone spray-painted the word "show off" on my garage door in dripping black letters. The police came, filed another report, took photos, said they'd add it to the growing list. But they couldn't arrest suspicion. My neighbors started talking more openly after that. Whispers over fences, quick glances exchanged in driveways. They were seeing it. Finally, seeing it. The pattern. The cruelty. The need for dominance wrapped in fake concern and florals. The board was forced to call a special meeting within 10 days. Kerren tried to cancel it, citing procedural errors. The HOA attorney said she couldn't. I watched her face when the announcement went out. There was panic, brief controlled, but it was there. I spent those 10 days preparing. I printed packets for every home, detailed accounts of her abuses, the citations, the property damage, the manipulation, the secret votes she passed by email. I included the audio clip and the blurry footage from the mirror incident. I highlighted the bylaw that said any board member who engaged in repeated misconduct could be removed by majority vote. I didn't just hand them out. I knocked. I talked. I listened. People opened up. One woman told me Kerren once fined her for drying clothes on a line out back. Another said her child was banned from the community pool for running. A man on the corner revealed he had been issued 6 citations in 2 weeks after questioning a landscaping fee. Everyone had a story, but no one had dared connect them until now. The night of the vote, the clubhouse was packed. Folding chairs filled. People stood along. The walls, Kerren sat at the front, still in control. Or trying to be. She called the meeting to order. Voice steady, eyes scanning. I stood and addressed the room. I didn't yell, I didn't accuse, I just laid it out. The rules, the violations, the pattern of retaliation. Then I passed out the packets. Kerren tried to interrupt. Claimed slander, legal threats. She said she'd call the police. Said we were lucky she kept the place running at all, but her voice cracked. Only once, barely noticeable. Then a woman from the back stood up. I got 3 citations for having wind chimes. I didn't even know that was against the rules. Then a man, she fined me for having a political sign during the election, said it was too divisive. Voices joined one after another, stories proof. Frustration that had been fermenting for years. Kerren tried to regain control, banged the gavel, declared the meeting out of order. But it was too late. The vote happened anyway. Secret ballots. 1 per household. I stood near the back, watched as people walked up, dropped their slips into the box. No one looked at her, not directly. When the counting ended, the room went silent. 72 votes cast, 64 in favor of removal. Someone read it aloud. Kerren didn't move at first, just stared at the wall. Then stood, said nothing, walked out. The door shut behind her with a soft click, but it sounded like thunder. There was no applause, just relief. I stepped outside. The air felt lighter, the sky clearer. For the first time in months. Breathed without tension, but that wasn't the end. 2 nights later, I caught someone on camera again. This time, they weren't trying to hide. Same hoodie, same sunglasses, same build. Walking up my driveway at 2 in the morning, they pulled a knife, again, bent toward the front tire. The lights activated, flooded the driveway. They froze. I opened the front door, camera in hand, phone ready. "Smile," I said. They ran, but I already had the footage. Clearer this time, face partially visible, knife in hand. License plate caught as they drove away. I sent it to the police. They called me back the next afternoon. They'd matched the vehicle. Registered to Kerren's sister. The knife matched the one from the earlier incident. They had enough now, they issued. A warrant. She was arrested at her home the following morning. Mugshot taken, posted publicly. Charged with vandalism, harassment, destruction of private property. The neighborhood group chat exploded. Screenshots of her face. The arrest record, even memes. One showed her holding a knife over a tire with the caption, "HOA now stands for handcuffs on arrival." By evening, the story hit local news. I sat on my porch that night again. Same chair, same drink. The Corvette gleamed beside me. Untouched, a neighbor. Walked by, raised his glass. "You did it," I nodded. "I just started it." She did the rest. The house across the street was dark now. Curtains drawn. The power she wielded gone. Her throne reduced to a folding chair and a citation record and the best part. The community was finally awake, but I wasn't finished. Not yet, because justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about making sure no one like her ever ruled again. It took a few weeks for the dust to settle after Kerren was arrested. The neighborhood felt different, lighter. The air wasn't thick with fear anymore. It wasn't just my victory. It was everyone's. I still kept my cameras up, kept the Corvette in the driveway. But now the community felt safer. People were talking more. Neighbors were finally stepping out of the shadows. One by one, they started speaking out. About the petty fines, the invasions of privacy, the years they had spent walking on eggshells. It was like the floodgates opened. They had been waiting for someone to make the first move, someone to stand up. And when I did, they followed. The new HOA board was elected in a matter of weeks. There were no protests, no opposition. Kerren's influence had crumbled faster than I expected. Her supporters vanished into the background. The ones who were left stood quietly by the new rules. No more controlling what people wore, no more fining for having flowers in the wrong spot, no more picking apart lives to assert dominance. I couldn't help but smile when I passed by the old clubhouse. The building was the same, but its weight had changed. The echo of Kerren's power was gone, and it was replaced with something else. Something brighter. Made sure to visit the board every now and then, check in, make sure no one was trying to slip through the cracks. But the new president was calm, reasonable. She listened, and the entire dynamic of the neighborhood shifted for the better. But I knew the real battle wasn't just about Kerren. It was about everyone who had suffered under her reign of terror. Everyone who had been too afraid to speak up. Everyone who had given up their voice because of her manipulation. I still remember the look on the police officer's face when he told me Kerren had been charged. It wasn't just surprise. It was disbelief. No one had ever stood up to her. No one had ever taken her down before. And when they arrested her, the shock waves rippled through the whole city. Her mugshot went viral, and the memes flooded every corner of the internet. A few days later, I saw a post that caught my eye. It was a picture of her, a classic image of Kerren glaring, with the caption, "Breaking HOA President Arrested for being the worst neighbor ever." The next time I saw her face, it was plastered all over the tabloids. She tried to play the victim, claimed she had been unfairly targeted, but nobody was listening anymore. The public wasn't buying it. Her reputation was gone. I wasn't satisfied just with the arrest. I wanted her legacy gone, too. I wanted everyone to remember that someone had stood up, someone had fought for fairness, for decency, for community. I started talking to the neighbors, more, spreading the word about what had happened, about how the HOA was changing, about how we were all free now, free to live without fear, free to be ourselves. It felt like the last chain had finally been broken. I walked through the neighborhood with my head held higher. I wasn't just the guy with the Corvette. I was the guy who made a difference. I wasn't just standing in my driveway. I was standing up for what was right, for what was fair. And every time I looked at my car, the thing Kerren hated so much, I couldn't help but smile, because it wasn't just a symbol of my success. It was a symbol of my rebellion, a reminder that no one could control me, no one could intimidate me, and no one could tell me where I belonged. Kerren's arrest was a victory, but the real victory came with the peace that followed. The quiet moments when the neighborhood felt whole again. The sense of freedom that spread through the streets, and the knowledge that if you fight hard enough, if you fight smart enough, you can take down anyone, even the queen of the cul-de-sac. The last thing I heard about Kerren was that she moved out of the city, somewhere far away, out of sight, out of mind. No one missed her, not even the people who had once been too afraid to cross. Her but me. I kept my Corvette parked right in the driveway, and every time I drove through the streets, I knew I had won. And so had everyone who had ever been pushed down by a tyrant in disguise. That's when I realized something powerful. It wasn't just about taking her down. It was about showing everyone else that they didn't have to live in fear anymore, that we could all be free to be who we were, to live how we wanted. And that made it all worth it. 'Cause in the end, justice wasn't just about what happened to her. It was about what happened to us. And we were all free now.